this was it.
It was locked. I just don't know that it was locked well or good enough, obviously.
Jon and Beth Brooks are hunters. Deer and birds, their usual targets. They kept more than a dozen firearms locked in a safe.
Looks like 14.
People think we're odd because we hunt. But when you grow up doing that, that is your normal.
Jon and Beth's son Nathan seemed like a typical kid. He enjoyed school, sports, and apparently loved his parents and his sister.
Say hi.
Hi.
He went to school, goofed around, did schoolwork, very intelligent. We had several teachers tell us that.
But somewhere along the way, Nathan started to rebel and became obsessed with violent computer games. Would you ever have violent thoughts?
Well, I think just about everybody has violent thoughts occasionally, but I don't ever really remember having intentional thoughts of harming other people.
Curiously, even now, Nathan and his parents are evasive on the question of why he did it, and their stories often differ. But one thing they do agree on is that Nathan suffers from depression, which they didn't know at the time. What on earth could your parents have possibly done that made you want to kill him?
And that's, I think, that's the number one question everywhere you go among people. That's what everyone wants to know.
Why?
Yeah, exactly, is why. I mean, why would someone do this? I have one of the most severe versions of depression. With a lot of people, depression affects people different ways. There's your depressed people that sleep, and then there's your depressed people that are very irritable. I just happen to be one of the ones that were very easily irritable. And for me, I don't know, it's hard to explain. Just any little thing frustrated me.
Had there been any abuse of any kind that had taken place?
No, my parents never abused me. I was never hit, there was never verbal abuse. I mean, every child, don't do that, shame on you, but never was I ever verbally abused or physically abused.
So it was just one night that you just snapped?
It was just one night, and I was just really vulnerable with everything that was going on, and it was too much for my brain to handle, and I just snapped.
But Officer Rick Francis, the first responder to the attack who's investigated the case for years, believes something more sinister is at work. Do you have any doubt that he knew what he was doing?
Oh, no. He knew exactly what he was doing. When you get up close and personal, when you do a crime like that, and you shoot somebody point blank, you put a gun in their face, and then you pull the trigger, that's personal.
Police say the Brooks family has been investigated before over abuse allegations and were uncooperative.
And that investigation was stymied by Jon and his wife.
How do you mean?
I mean, they just blocked it. No cooperation, no nothing, no access.
When I put that allegation to Jon and Beth, the mood shifted and became tense. In 2010, police investigated a report that your son molested a girl who was younger than he was, but you allegedly prevented police from interviewing your son. So the investigation was dropped. Why did you stop police from talking to your son?
One, come to find out through the school that alleged that, come to find out they were wrong in the way they did it. Two, the police talked to the victim and found that there was nothing to charge. So after we were told that there was no crime had been committed, they asked to interview him. I said, well, if no crime has been committed, then no, he won't be interviewed.
So just for clarification, Has any abuse at all taken place under your roof, be it sexual abuse or physical abuse?
No, none whatsoever. You know, you get into where you're going good and somebody always tries to dredge something up that quite honestly pisses you off and makes you wish you'd never come to sit down with them.
But Jon and Beth were watching their son closely with those security cameras placed inside, not outside the home. Why put security vision throughout the inside of the home, recording what goes on the inside?
Well, the light in our pantry would be off at night, and then it was on in the morning. We couldn't figure out what was going on. So we're like, well, why don't we just put one of the cameras in there to see if one of the kids are sleepwalking? And that's why that camera was there.
Did you know that there were cameras inside your house?
I did not at that time, no.
Looking back now, though, do you think that's a bit much, Dad?
I don't think that it was much. He was using it to keep track on me and see if I was doing my chores in the house.
It wasn't to watch your son?
Mm-mm.
Not to check on them for any other reason?
No, to sleepwalk.
It just kind of seems odd to me to have cameras set up inside a home that's watching all the time. It feels like it's a tad extreme, in my opinion.
I think you're extremely misinformed, with all due respect.
Again, police have a different theory.
I think it was to watch Nathan for sure, but it wasn't to watch Nathan because he's sleepwalking. I think it was to watch him because they were afraid of him.
Jon and Beth still suffer from daily pain, and Beth is blind in one eye. But every few months they drive 4 hours from Moses Lake to Nathan's prison to visit their son.
Oh, look at that. Is it going for the Santa Claus look?
There you go.
You feel pretty lucky to be alive.
Uh-huh. Very. It has its glitches, but I still get to see my boy. I still get to see my husband and daughter.
You say that in such a loving way, I still get to see my son, even after he tried to kill you. How are you so forgiving?
I don't know if it's forgiveness, because if Nathan has something going on in the brain, he couldn't control it any better than I could.
I guess I looked at it as, you don't forgive a child because they have cerebral palsy.
Yeah.
So why would I forgive my son for having a mental health condition?
But with all respect, it's not the fact that your son has a mental health condition. It's the fact that your son put a gun to your head and tried to kill you.
Yes.
But he did that because of the condition.
I looked at it as, I agree with everyone. His actions were wrong. They're not acceptable. I had to sit there and you know, with the attorney saying, yes, what he did was wrong. He should be punished for that. But I understand why.
I don't think I'll ever be super used to, you know what I mean, like looking out and seeing a fence. But it's something you kind of adapt to, so it's not always on the mind.
Nathan will be 29 when he's eventually released from prison. He'll have spent most of his life behind bars. He says he looks forward to working as a mechanic and reconnecting with his parents as a free man. Why do you think they were able to tell you that they still love you and that they were able to forgive you?
For me, that is something that is quite extraordinary. That's something, and I asked my parents about this, and they say it's something that I'll never really understand until I have children, to know the unconditional love for a parent to a son or a daughter.
Nathan has apologised, and even if the question of motive is unclear, the forgiveness part is not.
Hey, Dad. Oh, love you, buddy.
What are your hopes for the future?
I hope to have family reunions. I think as right now today, our family loves each other immensely. I think there's a huge bond that's there. I think we're all stronger than what we were when this started.
Definitely.